what's up, it's Brandon here. Today we're going to take you for a ride on my 2004 Dodge Viper. It's a little cold today. The car is honestly pretty dirty, so I'm also going to take it for a wash and just rinse some of this grime and stuff off. It's sat in the garage for a couple of months, but it's a pretty nice day, pretty nice evening, so thought we'd take you a ride on the Viper and kind of see what you like. Again, it's been a couple months I've driven it, but we'll have some fun. So we'll get out of the neighborhood and then kind of go from there. Since it is a little cold, I'm not going to get on it anything too crazy or too hard. I'm going to let the temperature get up a little bit before I have some fun with it. But we're just going to cruise through town a little bit, nothing too crazy. Then maybe we'll go to some different roads and kind of kick things in a little bit. But it's been pretty crappy here where I live in Indiana, so the roads are pretty clear. There's just some dirt and some sand around. I don't really think the salt's honestly too bad from driving around today. I'm going to stay on some pretty main roads, so like I said, not going to go too crazy on it, at least yet. So I guess one thing we can talk about is, you know, why did I decide to buy a Viper? I think a lot of kids probably around my age, growing up in the 90s, we saw these cars and we thought that they were incredibly cool looking. Obviously we know they're definitely fun, very raw. And I don't know, I was never personally a Corvette guy. I never got to the Corvette hype. It just wasn't me. So I really liked the Viper, and when I was shopping and always looking around, I never really thought that I'd be able to afford the one that I wanted. Prices obviously came down quite a bit, and then I bought this after COVID, actually when prices really tanked before they went stupid. That wasn't by design or anything, just I had the finances for the car, the prices were good, it was cold outside, so obviously these cars aren't moving around a whole lot whenever that weather's like that. And they honestly, I've really never seen Vipers with terrible mileage. You're not going to find a whole lot of Vipers that are 80, 90,000 miles that you can get dirt cheap just to drive around. So in terms of why I bought one, I like the V10, I like the manual. I think the aggressive stance of the car is just incredibly enjoyable to look at. Nothing against Corvette owners. I just think the Viper looks better. That's just me personally. I do see some amazing Corvettes, but to me, I just think whenever you see a Viper, you know it's a Viper. I think also just the illusion of a car like this. You don't see them a whole lot. Chances are, if you see one out driving around, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a Viper. And anytime I take this car somewhere, that's usually what somebody says to me is, wow, I've not seen a Viper in person before. Can I get some pictures? Or, you know, can you tell me a little about the car? So I think that's cool as just a conversation piece where every day when I'm driving to work or running errands or what have you, I see Corvettes just literally past one. So to me, that's another piece of why I like the Viper. But this one in particular, this Gen 3, why did I get this one? I was shopping around for a while, and this one made sense. I knew I was going to drive the car, so let's get that first and foremost. I was not trying to buy a car where I'm just going to let it sit in my garage and collect dust and not enjoy the car. The whole purpose for me of buying this car was to drive it. So I did want to buy some with some mileage on it, somebody that hopefully took care of it relatively well from what I could tell. There were some things that this car definitely needed, and I've made a video kind of talking about what all I've had to do to this car, and I've definitely made it look a lot better. It's definitely show-worthy now, and so now the goal is just to kind of get into what I want. I want to be able to update the exhaust system, give it a heads and cam package, and probably call it there. That way it's fun, it's got a ton of horses, enjoyable car, but it's also going to be super reliable and still remain naturally aspirated. To me, I think that just is what I want out of this car. And again, it's why I also bought a Viper to begin with. I could have bought something that had, you know, a turbo or that was supercharged like a Hellcat or something like that. But to me, that just was not the vehicle that I was looking for. So, but then also, this year model was really just honestly one of the cheaper Vipers that was out there. A Gen 1, obviously an awesome car, but you know, it doesn't have all the nice amenities that you would want if you're going to drive the car on a semi had that stuff, but I'll be honest, if I'm getting a Gen 2, I'm going to get a coupe. So prices were up on those. And so when we found the Gen 3, it seemed to be a nice mix. We're going to have increased power, some extra comforts, but not nearly like the Gen 4s. I think the Gen 4s, to me, are just overpriced. I understand that it's a bigger engine, but otherwise, it's obviously got the better looking hood. But to me, it's just way too, to me, the price jump is too much. So the convertible made sense from a price perspective. I wanted to be able to, learn this car, have fun with this car, enjoy this car, and then we can kind of see where it goes from there, whether I decide to get a Gen 2 or a Gen 4. I like the Gen 5s, just, I'll be honest, they're not really at my budget right now. I'm not trying to spend that kind of money on a car. This is my first vehicle that has had a stupid amount of power. It's a manual, so I do think that overall this car fits good for me and what I wanted to do. And as a first-time owner, it's been super easy. I mean, all I've had to do is tires and oil and anything else that I want to do, and it's been pretty reliable. So that's also really nice. I would say if you're looking for a car like this right now, with the way car prices are, they're definitely increased in price, but I think you can still find some good deals out there. I do think prices are coming down just a little bit, but if you want to get into Viper ownership, I think now is probably the time that you're going to want to do that. So yeah, we've already got some guy checking out my car, so that's another thing that if you like people checking out your car, then a Viper is probably going to be something you want. And to me, I don't really care, but as I'm sure you can tell, that this car has a lot of blue in it. This car was painted from one of the previous owners to be blue, and the 2004 did not come as a blue vehicle, so this is a very rare car. It sticks out like a sore thumb in traffic no matter where you go. We've obviously got some tinted windows and stuff to keep things a little bit cooler, but to not have people trying to talk to me all the time as well. If you have a Viper, I would love to hear why you chose to buy a Viper. What was in the Viper that you thoroughly enjoyed? What do you currently enjoy about your Viper that you own? I think everyone's story with a car like this is definitely very unique. I think a lot of us agree that we grew up idolizing a car like this. You either had it on your wall or had the toy car or something like that. I know for me personally, it was just, I found the car attractive. I had never seen one in person until I went to a car show, and I still don't see them very often, at least wherever I am. I definitely know I don't live in like a warm climate area in Indiana, but we do have car shows around here, and I've done one car show so far where there was another Viper. It was an ACR. It was very nice, Gen 5. But I think when you go to car shows, nothing against the Gen 5, but people are like, oh, you just purchased a car and you're bringing it to a car show. You've not done anything to it. That's kind of an older crowd. Something I like about this vehicle is that it's at least been personalized, so people can't tell me that it's stock. I've not done any work to it. I've done a lot of work to it just in the year ownership that I've had it to kind of get it right. Now we're kind of just ready to do a little bit of performance stuff, and really I'm honestly done with the vehicle. I don't want to go, like I said, too overboard. I just honestly want to enjoy this vehicle. Again, I want it to be reliable, and I want it to be fun. I will say, if you've never driven a Viper, it's not hard, but the box here where my feet are can sometimes be, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but can definitely throw you off a little bit. I'm also really short, if you can't gather. I'm only 5'1", so I don't need a ton of space. I actually need to be relatively close to be able to operate this car. It's incredibly fun to drive, but I definitely know the first time I drove it compared to driving other manual vehicles, I definitely felt like I was really kind of squished. So I'm definitely happy that I'm small, because I fit in this vehicle really easily. Anybody that has any kind of like big stature is probably not going to fit into a vehicle like this. So I would just keep that in mind if you're in the market for one of these cars. Like I also said, this is my first manual car. I've never owned a manual. Part of the requirements when I was younger was that my dad made me learn to drive a manual from my neighbor's car, which seems kind of like forceful, but my parents didn't have a manual car either, but my dad emphasized that knowing how to drive a manual car was relatively important in case if you had to drive somebody else's vehicle, or kind of emergency, something like that. So we went to the parking lot when I was 15, 16 with their vehicle and just learned how to start and stop and operate a manual car, how to operate the clutch and things like that. And then a good friend of mine at my gym taught me how to redrive his manual, because it had been, I don't know, 14 years, about that, since I had driven one. So I don't want to, it's like a bike, you got to kind of jump on and get going again, but once I got in the hang of it, it wasn't a problem. And that's, again, kind of why I like this vehicle, is because they are all manuals. So again, I don't want to say that somebody can't steal this car. They certainly can, but in today's age, manuals are going away very fast. You're not seeing many cars produced with them, unless if it was kind of like a special request from an owner on a new car. But yeah, I think it's also just a fun driving experience for a car like this. So I do sometimes think it would be cool to have paddles. Obviously, this is a 2004. That wasn't exactly, I don't want to say it wasn't around, but definitely not popular with a car like this. But it is nice to actually have the shifter in your right hand. So in terms of modifications of this car, from what let's first what the previous owners had done, and then kind of what I have done to this car. So when I purchased this car, it had 36,000 miles, and it's currently got 40,000. So in about 15 months of ownership, I've only put 4,000 miles on it. I feel like that's pretty good. It's actually less than 4,000 miles, probably about 3,800. So obviously I drove the vehicle, like I said, but I didn't like overdrive it. And I'll be honest, when the spring came around, I got it in the winter about this time. Bought the car in January of 2021. When I bought the car, I obviously wanted to drive it a lot, and I couldn't. So I drove it a lot that first spring, because as anybody knows, the honeymoon phase of the car, you're going to drive it quite a bit. However, when I got the car, it's in blue, as I mentioned, was not a stock car or stock color for this car. It also has ADB1 rims on it. They're black, but paint matched to the blue paint. They look great. Probably one of my favorite things about this car. The calipers are paint matched. The car overall just flows really, really well, and that's one of my favorite things about it. And for the most part, that's really all the previous owners did in terms of like appearance. There's nothing else done to the vehicle from a performance standpoint or whatever. They basically just painted it blue and put some rims on it. So considering this has a black and blue theme, one of the first things I did was tint the windows to match, to go with the black rims. That was an immediate visual appearance, I think, for the car. I think it immediately looked more aggressive and more enjoyable to just see driving down the road. And then the next thing I did as well was I put some BC coilovers on it to drop the stance of the car. Also a very good modification to this vehicle. I think it handles better, but I just think it also looks better as well. And then the other thing is I did a paint correction and PPF the whole car. So the car is all protected. This beautiful paint is going to be able to be taken care of, and I don't have to worry about driving in and again ruining that paint. So those are the major modifications. I've also upgraded some of the interior stuff to kind of give it some of that blue. I added these VIO 0.9 doors. These look really great with the car as well. These are also not stock, but again, I think it gives it a good visual appearance. I'll be honest that this car, from an interior perspective, is not that great. It's just not. It was 2004, is a rough era for Chrysler, and I think this is obviously where they skimped in this vehicle, was the interior. So I don't care. I think it drives great, this year when we come to some car shows, it does a little bit better than it did in the years past. About this car though, and even though it's a sports car, again, this could be because I'm smaller in stature, but I really think this car is actually pretty comfortable in terms of a sports car. I mean, I'm not uncomfortable by any means. Doesn't make my low back tight. The dead pedal for me is at a perfect spot. But having to cruise at speeds like this on the highway, obviously there's no cruise control in this car, so that part kind of sucks if you're trying to drive it a little bit of distance. But it's really not that bad. Another big issue that people talk about as well is the cabin heat. It does put out a lot of cabin heat. It's cold outside right now, and my heat is on the lowest setting, and I'm in a hoodie, and it's pretty comfortable. So, you know, if I really want to try to cool down a little bit, I'd probably have to turn my hood off and just need the cabin heat. And I can feel it on my feet as well. So, something that people knock, but I'll be honest, it's not that bad. It's manageable. Obviously, I'm in a convertible, so when the weather's nice, it tops back anyway, and it's just going to blow the heat out. So, that's not a big deal. I'm hoping that by upgrading the exhaust, that's going to help with some of this to where it's not as bad. But again, like I said, I'm not complaining. Wearing a hoodie, I'm having no issues. So I would say that another big knock, if I had to give one on this car, is the entertainment or infotainment system, whatever you want to call it, stereo. It's based out of a Dodge Caravan. Kind of sucks. But let's be honest, you're not buying this car for the stereo system, and there's enough aftermarket options available these days that can be fixed, and you know, eventually that is something I'm going to do. To me, it's not that important right now because again, you know, I just listen to general music. When I drive the vehicle, I'm not that concerned about the stereo quality, at least in this car. It's not what I bought it for. And it's nice when the radio's not on, you can actually hear this car, and I think that's probably the best thing about it. It's just how vocal this car is, how much it can scream at you. We're at a roundabout, and I freaking hate these things. They're not bad, just this one is in a stupid spot. Basically an off-ramp that's part of it, which I driving aggressively with a car like this can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. I'm not a race car driver. I'm not going to pretend to be. But I do want to have a car that can kind of get on a little bit here and there, and it kind of feels some power, so that's kind of nice. The torque in this car is without a doubt the best thing about it. Just being able to feel that power when you get on it is really, really nice. And we're kind of back in town, so this isn't too bad of a place. Don't have to go stupid here, but place to call it. Drove around quite a bit, kind of let you get a feel of my story, my take on the car. Obviously, I'm going to try to document some more stuff with the vehicle as well. I'm just going to shoot some videos of just me driving around, getting some fun pulls in. It's just cold, and I'll be honest, car has been in the garage for 2 months, not being driven, and today was just a beautiful day outside. It was cold. Highest it got today, I think, was 40, but temperatures don't scare me. In terms of driving my car, it's more so the weather. Weather has been absolute trash the past couple months. I took advantage of a good day today, hooked up the GoPro, and kind of gave you guys a little story. So when the weather gets a little better, I'll put on the head cam, I'll put the camera on the outside of the car. We'll kind of try to have some more fun with the opportunities with the vehicle. But again, you know, basically all I'm trying to do is just have some fun, let people kind of see what it's like to own a car like this. Because I'll be honest, I never thought I would have had a car like this, and it's incredibly fun to drive. It's kind of a dream come true, affordable dream come true. And I think anytime anybody gets a chance to ride in a Viper, you should definitely do it. So thanks for tuning in. You can check me out on the channel. I'm sure you notice I upload a lot of fitness stuff. I'm a strength coach for a living, so that's kind of what I mainly use my channel for, but try to get some people into the opportunity to see what it's like to be driving a Dodge Viper. So thanks for checking in. Have a good one.